I think he still got it.
Jace.
Chris, it's Tour Pro Tuesday.
That's right, buddy. Hey, guess what? We got you out from behind the desk.
I'm not a picture in the corner.
I'm gonna put a picture up on the screen for the folks at home. And we're out here hitting golf balls. We've been busting our butts, getting some video content ready to go for you folks at home for the Drop 2 submissions. And then we also got a pretty important week when it comes to swing change, right?
Swing change.
But Jace, because it's Tour Pro Tuesday, that means we are gonna be heading inside the lab here to do one thing.
What are we doing, Chris?
We're gonna be looking at a tour player. We had some pretty exciting stuff that happened this past weekend. We had Nelly Korda, who we just featured on the channel. She got out there and won the Annika. We had, who won in Bermuda?
Bermuda. It was somebody I was not familiar with.
Okay, we'll look that up when we get back in the studio.
So we have Rory McIlroy winning in Dubai again.
Yeah, that's right. So Rory McIlroy, back on the block this week because it fits perfectly with what we're gonna teach you. Rory's a very powerful player. But Rory has a lot of really good positions that we can see on camera that a lot of you can learn from. Not that I'm going to teach you how to swing the golf club like Rory, but a lot of you need to start to see and feel what the arms and shoulders should be doing at the top of the golf swing, into transition, and into delivery. Because if you train your smallest muscles on how to work properly, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be able to hit the golf ball better because you probably haven't trained them in the first place. It's pretty exciting.
That's pretty exciting. I would want to do that.
So we're going to focus in on a key move in transition, and we're going to focus in on the lead bicep position in the hitting area, so that you can start getting the wheels turning because we got a doozy of a week coming for you.
Yeah, we do.
Ooh, that is good, Jace. I mean, we might have to just stay out here and not go to the lab and just keep letting me hit golf balls. I could have stayed out there and hit golf balls all day long. I am a freaking golf nut, that's for sure. And I know a lot of you could do the same thing, but I know a lot of you would probably stay out there longer if you hit the ball more on the solid side. And a lot of you struggle to figure out what to work on at the right times because it feels like there's so much to work on. And we're gonna do our very best this week to help simplify the process for you because a lot of you will make the fatal mistake of loading up your smallest muscles way too big and loading up your big muscles way too small. Your hands and your arms do have function. And how your hands and your arms work in the golf swing should be very independent from what your shoulders do. Now, if you've been following my content at all, you know that I talk about the golf swing as three main systems. We talk about the body being the main system, so that covers your trunk, your core, your shoulders. And then we talk about your arms as being the second system, and the wrist being the final and third system on that list. Now, each one of those systems plays a vital role in your success. But the two terms that we're really going to be talking about here today that are more or less consequential to the body's movements are the recentering process and depth. And I'm going to show you a cool little trick with the depth line in the second part of the video today that's going to help you kind of get the wheels turning for the drill that I'm going to show you later on in the week. But I want to talk about how the hands and arms are going to help you create the recentering process, but without being tense. And this is a really good visual of Rory's golf swing here from a face-on perspective to kind of encompass the whole process in which we do to move the weight onto the lead side as we start to finish off our body turn. Now, looking at it from face-on, I'm going to draw a line on the outside part of his right hip. And I want you to watch very closely how the golf swing gets started. You're going to see that there is some horizontal natured movement from the pelvis. So we start to pressure shift into the trail side, and then we start to turn. So many of you are afraid to make that movement happen because it feels like a slide or a sway, and you've been brainwashed to think that that's a bad movement. This is a great movement for you to be able to start building the golf swing with the most power that you can present in the golf swing. Horizontal, vertical, and rotational force. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about how to get the club's momentum and inertia to help you in the recentering process of the golf swing. Recentering is something that actually happens for you naturally or automatically. It happens because if you think about this objectively, where is momentum and inertia when the hands and arms start to get outside of our trail thigh? Where is the momentum and inertia in the golf club? Well, it's moving in a direction that's away from the target. But as we start to move quickly through this position, that momentum and inertia is going to start to shift. And when we get to about lead arm parallel to the ground is when the right shoulder actually starts to work further back in behind the head. And if you look down at the hip line, what you're going to notice here is that the hip has actually moved kind of back into its original starting position. But what you want to remember is that the hips are rotating. And when you're looking at it from a face-on perspective, it's rotating back into the depth dimension of the swing. That's why you see that. There's still a significant amount of pressure that's in the trail side. But what you're going to see here is the recentering process starting to take shape because of where momentum and inertia is now working to. And when you look at that right hip very closely, you start to see the hips slide away from that line. That is recentering. That is something that's not driving through Rory's brain right now of trying to recenter the golf swing and when that happens. I promise you. It's happening as a result of moving in the correct order. And if you look at the lats here, you can see that these bigger muscles are starting to get really expanded. This is where we create a lot of good separation between the hip line and the shoulder line. There's a lot of big stretch up the left side, up through the left shoulder, that's going to be eventually uncorked and turned into a whole lot of club head speed through the bottom. But notice as that recentering process starts to happen, we start to make that really good aggressive downward shift on the lead foot, just like I taught you last week. So what you want to think about is not necessarily trying to get your weight moving to the trail side, or onto the lead side, I should say. You want to think about allowing your body's systems to be able to help you get there. And if you feel like the hands and arms are getting to a certain spot of the golf swing, you should know that your weight is moving along with it. You want to think about starting to really aggressively sit down into that lead ankle, and you're going to be well on your way to having a very powerful sort of downswing approach. But now, I also want to talk a little bit about the left arm. The left arm and the left shoulder, because this kind of segues into the depth part that we're going to talk about in the second part of the video. As I said to you, you want your arms to be working independently from your shoulders. And a lot of you don't know what that means. And a lot of you watched some of the other videos and you saw that we had some function where we had the arms working first before we started to shift our weight, which is not really happening. But we wanted to create that feel, because if you get your arms to start working independently from your shoulders and let them work down off of the shoulders, because you're not hanging on to tension in the shoulders, then what you're going to find is that you're going to have a really good hand and arm path, and you're going to have the club working into and through that really illustrious position that so many of you search for, the slot. So looking at this from a face-on perspective, one of the things that you're going to learn from me later on in the week is the position of the lead bicep at address and how critical it is to get it on the lead side of the chest in the downward half. A lot of you will run into a position where at point of contact, your lead bicep is going to be more draped into the chest. It's going to be high on the chest. And what that does is it tells us, golf instructors, that your arms are not working independently from your shoulders. Your shoulders are going to influence the direction in which your hands and arms are going to work. They're going to work in a vertical fashion or a downward fashion. They're going to work in an in-to-out fashion, or they're going to work in an out-to-in fashion. But if your arms are not working independently from the shoulders, think about this a little bit more objectively. Well, what can move? Well, your hands. If your body stalls and your arms are stopping with that, then your hands are going to start to become flippy and scoopy. That's what gets people into trouble when they play this game, because you start changing the dynamic loft, you start changing the rate of closure in the club face, and you start hitting big old slices or big old snap hooks. That's right. Now, going into the second part of today's video, I want to show you a cool little line that a lot of you can start to use, and it's what we call the depth line. Now, depth, a good way to kind of understand depth in the golf swing is that there are vertical natured movements and horizontal natured movements that exist in the golf swing. And it's our job as golf instructors to find that balance between the two, because we're playing golf and we're swinging on an inclined plane. Each player is a little bit different. But one of the lines that you can use is, if you look at your golf swing from a down the line standpoint, we generally want to get our hands to be touching the depth line at the top of the golf swing. So look at this as Rory starts to go up to the top. And you're going to see that his left hand is on the depth line. Notice how the club head, though, has now moved in the direction a little bit across the line. So a good way to kind of understand depth is anything that's back in behind this line is the depth dimension of the golf swing. Now, what we look for is we want the hands and arms to feel like they're working straight down. They're never going to be working 100% vertically, and they're never going to be working 100% horizontally. But what you will see here is that there's going to be a gradual movement of the hands and arms in this direction. But notice what the club does in the downward half. Is the club gets back into the depth dimension of the swing all the way down into the point of where we're getting ready to start transferring all the speed into the club head, into the ball. That's right. That movement right there is being done as the arms are working independently from the shoulders. The club is staying back in depth, and that's a position that scares the daylights out of a lot of you, because it doesn't feel like you're going to have enough time to square up the club face. It feels like you're going to be swinging way out to the right, and it's going to compound on your slice. Or maybe you're one of those people that hits a snap hook. It feels like you have to help the golf club get back out in front of you really quickly, and it turns into that high rate of closure. But if you think about what I'm saying here, if you allow the system to work properly, and you allow your arms to start working properly, and you get your left bicep on the right side of your chest, the correct side of your chest, I should say, then there's a pretty good chance that you're going to have a whole lot more stability in the club face. You're going to have a much better hand and arm path, and you're going to have a much happier time on your hands when you leave the driving range. You know what I'm saying? Remember, if you guys are brand new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post it up below. Leave us a like, and we'll see you guys in the next video.